opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Shaw Cable Systems or of the station. Through our access policy, we provide the opportunity for community groups and individuals to express their points of view.
Hi, I'm Zach Jeffries, and welcome to Saskatoon In Focus, the program where we talk to the people in and behind the headlines who make Saskatoon the great city that it is today. Today it's my pleasure to have Curtis Olson with us, who is the owner of Shift Developments here in Saskatoon. Thanks for coming in, Curtis.
Thanks, Zach.
So, I've been trying to get you on the program for a while now. You are one of those guys, when I talk about people who I think are interesting, doing cool stuff in Saskatoon, you're the guy that always seems to pop on my top 5 list. So I wanted to have you in the studio and talk about some of the things that you're doing.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me today. It's exciting to be here, and I, people that know me know that I'm always open for a conversation and to talk about the projects I'm doing and the thoughts I have about where our city is going.
Great. So Shift Developments, tell me a little bit about that. You've got a couple of projects that have really been at the forefront in Saskatoon over the last couple of years here. There was the Shift Home, there's the new 220. Tell me about those.
Yeah, sure. To talk a little bit about the company and the name of it, really, the projects I do are primarily ones that are trying to bring some new ideas into the city and maybe prove some different lifestyles and different things that other people maybe haven't thought about. The Shift Home, that was a new housing project, just one house, but we did it in Riversdale on Avenue F South. It was a demonstration of an infill home, very modern in design, very green in terms of energy efficiency and energy conservation and water conservation, and affordable in that the house had a basement suite, which, like myself and like lots of other people I know, that's how they afforded to buy their first houses. There was income. So that home really is wrapped up in the description of modern, green, and affordable. That was a prototype home, and it turned out really well. The last project that I've done since then has actually been a commercial project, again in Riversdale, which is where most of the work that I do is. And the 220 is the name of that project on 20th Street West. People will know the building as the former Joe's Cycle, which people of my generation all bought their first BMX or first mountain bike there. Yep. Or before that it was Cannigan's Furniture. So it's a well-known property on 20th Street. And we did, I'm just at about 80% completion of doing an overhaul on that building and turning it into a huge community of people that work there, whether it be in one of the small offices upstairs, in one of the studios in the basement, in Collective Coffee, which is a little espresso bar on the main floor. And that project has come to life and is filling up very quickly and is bringing an interesting energy and life to the street.
So with that project, you talk about how it's interesting and it's bringing energy. It's something, when you pass the street front, you say, wow, this looks really cool and innovative and modern, and that's before you even go inside. Mm-hmm. But then you think of the context of the neighborhood it's in. And a lot of people in Saskatoon, maybe less so now, but let's say even 5 years ago, would say, Cappuccino Espresso Bar in Riversdale, 20th Street? Really? So were you setting out to prove something by putting this really cool project in Riversdale on 20th?
I think that with all of my projects, there's always an agenda. And like I say, I'm not interested in doing in becoming a big major housing developer, because to me all of the interesting things are on that front edge of development or introducing new ideas. I think that what I've been trying to show is creating the spaces, whether it be homes or commercial space or offices or studios, that can put people in the neighborhoods where culture can thrive and an urban scene can develop really strongly in Saskatoon. And Riversdale is one of these areas that has, it's such a wonderful neighborhood because it has this huge retail area, much bigger than Broadway. In fact, most people don't realize that, but it's much bigger than Broadway, with lots of little storefronts that mean small business people can actually enter into that neighborhood and own the real estate and set up an innovative business or a retail business or a shop and be successful. The neighborhood is conducive to those kinds of fine-grained cultural things happening. And that's why I've decided to live nearby in Caswell Hill and operate in Riversdale. It's an exciting area, despite the strong ideas that people have about that neighborhood. It's at a very interesting time right now.
So we were talking a little bit just before we got taping here that you're originally from Saskatoon. You went away for a while and spent time in another city that has a bit more of an urban lifestyle and that walkability and some of those concepts that you're really working on now. Why did you decide to come back to Saskatoon and really try those things here instead of just going to another city where that urban, walkable, sustainable lifestyle is the norm and you could just be a part of that? Because, I mean, let's be honest, it's not as well ingrained here as it is in some other places.
No, it's a very good question. The thing that brought us back to Saskatoon in the first place was the opportunity to help All-Star Developments in converting the Fairbanks warehouse into loft-style condos. So that was an opportunity that came my way, and I said, I really want to be involved in this, and maybe it means being back in Saskatoon for a year. And my wife and I returned, and we said, well, while we're in Saskatoon, we have these great connections. We may as well do some interesting things while we're there, and put on some events and do some interesting projects. And what's happened is that from that project, I've just continually found another great opportunity and another that are all in these areas because, well, there's not a lot of other people doing that, or not a lot of other developers with an interest in doing those creative redevelopments. And I just find I have more opportunities than I can deal with here. Whereas in Victoria, I was the same guy looking for the same kinds of opportunities out there. I didn't find them in the same way. And my wife and I keep saying, the great opportunities that are in front of us here are what keep us here.
Yep.
And so that's what has kept us in Saskatoon. And the fact that our families are here certainly helps a bunch too.
It always helps.
Always, yeah.
So you say that you're always trying to push the envelope on the projects you're doing. Do you find that maybe amongst the larger developers in Saskatoon you're having an impact where they're seeing, hey, this guy is making things work in this neighborhood, or this type of living is really catching on? Do you feel like you're having an impact on some of those newer areas that are maybe being built at the periphery of Saskatoon that don't fall into the mold of what you're doing in Riversdale and Caswell Hill?
I don't think so. Like at a certain level, I don't think the larger developers really know who I am or pay much attention because they're sticking to their own business and doing what they do well. So I don't know if I'm having an impact at that level, but I know I have lots of good friends who are other, people that have been in development for 5 years or less that we share lots of ideas with, and that I think is helping to bring more interest into these neighborhoods. So I think it's with the newer developers, not with the older ones, where we're sharing ideas and looking at other interesting kind of projects.
So another interesting thing is that you have a great opportunity to travel quite a bit. You don't spend all of your time in Saskatoon. You get away to other interesting cities and see some of the cool stuff that's going on there. Not so much interested in some of the ideas you're bringing back. We see that. But when you're out there and you're talking with people, How do you sell Saskatoon? Obviously, you've got a lot of pride in our city. How would you say, you know what, maybe you should come check us out and see what we're doing here too?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, where I find the ideas and things, interesting things happening in Saskatoon where they travel beyond our border is not necessarily from our travels. I mean, interesting things happen that way in my one-on-one discussions. But when we have, my wife and I do house concerts in our home, and it's usually for touring musicians coming through. That's an interesting way where the word about the good things happening in our city spread, because a musician comes in and they have this great concert at our home, and the next night they're in Calgary and they're telling the story about what they experienced in Saskatoon the night before, and it goes to a crowd of people that are a captive audience of people watching that. So we've had lots of things come back to us from people having great experiences in the city and then carrying them beyond the borders.
So there's also a thing about carrying messages beyond the borders of certain neighborhoods in Saskatoon, and there's one quote that I like that I guess you and some people around the 220 Project have latched onto, and that's it's all good in the hood, or it's good in the hood.
Yeah, it's good in the hood.
Tell me about that.
You know, it's a funny little saying, because it came about just in an off-the-cuff comment that I made to a coworker of mine. And being a creative guy, he designed some little buttons and came back into my office with these little buttons. He said, "Hey, I like the ring of that," and I made a few buttons. And we thought that was kind of funny and started wearing them, and people started asking if they could have one too, and I still have people asking me for them. So it's one of these little things that just kind of like, you know, you throw 100 things against the wall and one of them sticks. It's one of these things that has just stuck and people have repeated and thrown back to us, and has created a really interesting dialogue with you know, people who both like it and maybe don't like it so much, or challenge it, or question the message that's ingrained in that. The truth is, it was not ever really premeditated or it came about from a strategic discussion or anything. It was just off the cuff, and that's usually where, you know, I find the most interesting things come about, is when you're not analyzing things too much.
I agree. I think the way that those conversations start is good, and I think it's good that we're also having those conversations in Saskatoon and realizing that we have some exciting stuff going on in Riversdale and Caswell, and you've been a big part of that, Curtis. So
yeah, we have, but there's still issues that need to be addressed, and lots of them. But those are, you know, there's issues all across the city that need to be addressed, and you can only, you know, tackle one thing at a time, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. I hope that you know, maybe we can start a bit of a conversation amongst other people, and
I would hope so,
and make sure that Saskatoon continues to be a great place to be. So
yeah,
thanks so much, Curtis.
Thank you very much.
And that's all the time we have for Saskatoon in Focus today. I'm Zach Jeffries. Thanks so much for joining us. Please make sure to connect with us. Find us online, on Twitter, on Facebook, our website, saskatooninfocus.ca, or send us an email with your comments, saskatooninfocus@gmail.com. Remember, when we get your feedback and we work together, we can make Saskatoon the best city in the world.